We are continuing with our savings account that was extended from bank account, and we're just going to practice the JUnit testing again. So I'm going to add a JUnit test case. It automatically pulls in savings account. We click next, and I'm using JUnit 4. And now theoretically we should not have to test anything from our superclass, because I should have already written all the test cases, even though we didn't, for the bank account. So the only thing I need to test, let's test these two things. We're going to test the constructor, and we're going to test adding interest. So it just populates then two tests for us when we do that. And so the add interest, because we just did some calculations and we know, well, a couple of things. I am going to first create a savings account object. So I'm going to create savings and then test, and it's going to equal a new savings. And we're going to run into some problems. The idea of unit testing is that you don't have any data already set, or that's one philosophy, and so that you are actually testing a, quote, pure environment. But in this case, we know that we have a constructor that takes in two arguments, and I want to actually test that constructor. So I'm going to actually back up, and we are going to test the constructor first, because if the constructor is not working, then I'm going to have to investigate. So I know I have a constructor here. We're going to send in 2% for our interest rate, and we'll start the balance with $300. So then I know that I'm going to have to get back assert equals, and I believe I can do my doubles, and I'm going to test 300 against get balance, and I want an epsilon value, so I need to set an epsilon value locally. Final, actually I need to do final double epsilon equals 1e to the negative 14th, and I'm going to use that as my argument here for the difference. Okay, so I also need to use my local object test to get the balance. So this should return true if I get my method name on get balance set up correctly. And if I want to run that test, remember I have to be on the, I want to do savings test, right click, and I want to then, I can just execute that particular test file and see if I get a green. I forgot to remove the fail, however, so first of all I'm going to comment out these two and see if we can get a green execution on my constructor, and I did. Now what happens if I left the test add interest in there, just to show you what's going to happen? It should run both, and it should fail on the second one. So I've got test savings right here, and test savings, actually we know that it was okay, but it was the test add interest that failed. And so when I go to my errors list here, I don't know if it's going to tell me. It should tell me somewhere where it fails, or I should know what test is failing, and I don't right now. Let's run it again. We're going to get a green. If I open that up, it's running both of them green, but that's because this is, so if I execute that, we're going to get a red again. I'm just looking to see if there's any way for me to know which one of those fails. Okay, so there's a green check mark right here on test savings, if you see that. So then I know that my testing my constructor worked because it has a little green check mark, but the other one, the test add interest, is failing. It does give you a stack trace here. There are other ways. You'll have to play around with the JUnit testing. I'm pretty new to it, but that will tell me right here that the test savings worked correctly. So now we want to test add interest. So again, I have to pretend that it's a brand new object. So I'm going to copy over the previous code, and now I'm going to add interest. And when I add interest, I don't think I got the test dot add interest is the method, and it's going to add that 2%. So I need to calculate what's my 2% of my 300. So 300 times 0.02, it's going to add, it's going to be 6. Should have known that off the top of my head. So I need to text here that that's going to be $306 against the balance and testing against epsilon. And I need to delete this code. So now if I test that and I execute, then my fail statement is still there. So take out my fail statement. Once I have my code written, I don't need that statement there. And we should get 2 green bars and 2 green check marks. So I get 2 green check marks. So now I just showed you how to test 2 different methods and also to test the constructor. These tests that I'm doing here, guys, they are not thorough, meaning I should be trying some other things. For example, what happens if I assert equals and I don't send in a value, or I send in some other value. And I'm not there's several things that I'm not testing. The point that I want to make is if you actually write unit tests, you're going to have a lot of assert equals and other code written in here. Okay? I'm back. I just wanted to show you what I meant by you're going to have multiple tests, and here is an example. I just pulled up some random website, but normally when you're testing something, you're going to have several of these assert statements because you want to test different conditions. This particular one, I'm not sure what it's actually testing. It looks like it's a subtraction test, but they're testing a positive and negative and then some other value. So you're going to have multiple assert statements within one test case. Here's another one. So this is testing a division integer, and so you have multiple asserts within a single test is what you normally do when you set up a JUnit test. All right, that wraps up testing our savings account class in Eclipse. We have not gotten to our checking account class. We might try to tackle that next.